welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Shianne Easter. First, a couple of announcements. Check out what may be the most powerful antioxidant known to man, C60 PurplePower. I've been taking C60 for quite a few years, and I still feel incredible. My dogs take it. My cat takes it. We all feel amazing. Go check out their website, or click the link in the description. If you use that link in the description, you are going to get 10% off your order plus free shipping. Check out our website, which is forbiddenknowledge.news. It's the home of the Forbidden Knowledge Network. Forbidden Knowledge News is always available on Rokfin, Odyssey, Rumble, all podcast platforms. Our social media is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rokfin is where you get the premium stuff, as well as all the premium content from every creator on Rokfin, and that's only $10 a month. Just click the links in the description, or you can go to rokfin.com/FKN+. That's ROKFIN.com/FKN+ to sign up. Today I want to welcome Shianne Easter. She is a self-taught ancient historical analyst of megalithic archaeological sites, deep time climate history, religious evolution, sacred numbers, and astrobiology. She seeks to find out the truth of Earth's catastrophic history so that we can better prepare for future generations. Shianne, welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Excellent. This is going to be great. Today we're going to get into a topic that I really haven't covered in a very long time. I used to quite often in the early days when I first started this, and that's the Planet X Nibiru, Nemesis, whatever you want to call it topic. And this is actually one of the first rabbit holes I started going down back when I was, first kind of waking up around 2014, 15, 16, 17. Those were the years I really focused on it. And I even used to do short daily news reports about the earth changes we're having, weather anomalies, space weather, earthquakes, volcanoes, all that crazy stuff. And I believe that we're still going through that. I just haven't really been keeping up. Like in any other conspiracy community, there were those that were either intentionally or not intentionally spreading crazy information, fake pictures, setting doomsday dates. And, after a while, I figured even if this thing was coming, even if we were to face Planet X in the future, right now we probably had a few more pressing things that I should be covering. But I am very open-minded to the topic, and it is still very much a consideration, just like many other topics that I consider a possibility. And I think we always need to look at all possibilities. And this is a great time for you to come on, and you've been researching this topic for a very long time. Let's start with, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started researching this.
Well, first off, Chris, I wanted to tell you that you're exactly correct when it comes to doomsday predictions. Any person who ever puts a doomsday prediction out there is just putting out more fear and making people panic. And no one can ever predict this. It's not something that is going to come on a certain day or a certain year. It's something that we have to prepare for long term and hope for the best, but know that it is coming, but we're never going to know when. And so, very much so, I don't believe in any prediction at all. And I try to base it around I would say there's a value of a few hundred years, and I'll get into that later, of a time frame that we can look at that we're in right now, that we've been through before, but we'll never put predictions out there.
Right on.
So how I got started in it, I had a pretty rough background growing up that I won't get into. And it just kind of led me into researching different archaeological sites and like religions and stuff like that. And so I started trying to look for, I didn't feel like I connected with Christianity, which is the faith that I was raised in. And so I was trying to find the source of where it all came from. And so, of course, that led me to the Sumerians. And I started reading Illumia Elish. I'm probably going to butcher a lot of these words because I don't really say them out loud often. I more or less read them in my head. Is that what you said? Yeah, Enumia Elish.
Yeah, okay.
Which is the Sumerian creation.
Right.
And so I started reading it and I started piecing together what they were describing, and parts of it was the origins of how our solar system was created. Mm-hmm. And I started piecing together sacred geometry and numbers with our orbits and how everything functioned in time and what causes climates and earth changes and different civilizations to just become extinct, you know? And so through trying to research my own beliefs, I found ancient civilizations and how their beliefs ended up being changed or manipulated over long periods of time. And partially it was due to the climate and what our earth was going through and our consciousness along with it.
Yeah, I often talk about how, even Graham Hancock said it best, that we're a species with amnesia. We're not even sure of our actual history from like 10, 20 years ago, let alone our ancient history. So, and we've probably been reset multiple times by multiple cataclysms along the way. And there's evidence that shows that, right?
And we're still here. We're still thriving. Yeah. We're still alive. And so all of those people that say, oh, everyone's going to die, it's just putting more fear mongering out there. Mm-hmm. Like, we're still surviving. We're still thriving. We're still here. So no matter what our earth goes through next, we're still going to be here.
Right on.
And that's what people need to remember.
Yeah, I agree. We're always somehow trucking along, and I think that's what's the purpose of this place here. But where do you think we should start with this? Do you have any idea of the earliest accounts of when this planet or lost star kind of came into our solar system?
I would say that it's always been here. Mm-hmm. That it was created along with our solar system in order to control life and death in our consciousness. So when I started researching, I pieced together a lot of sacred numbers along with for instance, the number 432. So to get into sacred numbers and geometry, anybody who's listening to this, there are five, but I'll get into that too. There's 4 main numbers that you need to watch. And that's the number 432, 324, 216, and 108. Those 4 numbers, when you put that into calendars, into climate history, into earth changes, volcanoes, into how our civilizations have risen and fallen, when you put it into account, you can track the changes with, I'm probably going to butcher this name too, but Melakotofsha cycles. So when you track the orbital data and you track the earth change data, it matches with sacred geometry and numbers. So for me, that tells me that our solar system was designed, it was created, and it was designed by a higher consciousness that I feel like we are all connected to and a part of. I wouldn't necessarily call it God. I'd more or less call it the source of the universe. And so when they created our solar system, they had to have a factor in there because for there to be life, there has to be death. And so I would say that the object in question has always been there.
Now, do you think this is responsible for probably the most catastrophic cataclysms or the most major ones that we face throughout human history?
Yes, those are even longer cycles. So we're talking about cycles in time within cycles within cycles within cycles. So there's minor changes that happen that lead up like a domino effect into the most major extinction events that we've had in history. But there are still minor changes that we go through that teeter-totter and go on a clock-like schedule.
Well, maybe so we should...
have the...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say maybe we should start with the cosmology surrounding Planet X or Nemesis. You said it was a planet basically created, to have a destruction cycle in our solar system. There's some theorists that believe that this is not only a planet, but it has surrounding moons and other debris and things around it. What is your understanding of what is surrounding this? Is it a star or is it a planet? All that stuff.
So actually in the NASA physics archives files, which I'm going to be sending you a bunch of links of websites when we get off of this podcast, so that other people can look at exactly what I'm talking about. So they have a theory out there that this object is a black hole star. So basically what that means is that it distorts the matter around it and the light around it, and you can't see it. But what it does is it sucks in the matter at the same time in order to propel it forward. And so it uses the energy around it almost kind of like an organism, like it's harvesting, and it uses it to like gather more. It's like really confusing because the way that I've looked at it is that it's almost on a conscious level, almost like the planet itself is alive, because like even our Earth is alive. Like we have to start looking at planets as not just a rock that we live on, but also an organism that has its own consciousness and mission itself. It has its it breathes, it grows. Okay, so with this object, it's named multiple different things. The Rosicrucians call it the dark star. So as it comes closer into our solar system, it pulls and it drags all of the planets and all of our own moons around them, and it tilts them. If you look at all of the different tilts on the great year cycle that happens, they all have their own tilt. So the Earth, for instance, I believe it's 22.1 to 24.5 degrees that it tilts every 26,920 years. And so that's just the Earth one, though. So as it comes closer into our solar system, when it tilts these planets and the sun itself, it causes all of the climate change on Earth. It causes like the Sahara Desert to turn into the Brazilian rainforest, right. The Amazon rainforest. So like it changes everything, and it does it on a clock-like system. So when it comes closer, it tilts us, and then when it goes past us, it goes further away, and it's almost like we're let go. So you take Pluto, for instance. Pluto has been declassified as a planet, like as a major planet. It's like a dwarf planet now because of how far away it is and because of the tilt of its orbit. That planet wasn't ever a planet. It was one of Neptune's moons that was dragged out because of the proximity of the dark star. As it comes into our solar system, it drags things out. So Pluto being one of those is very interesting because it shows us the strength of the gravitational pull on small objects, because we can already see the changes that it has on major objects and all of the planets in our solar system, including the sun. It has enough gravitational pull that it acts like a black hole because it's able to change the gravitational pull of other planets and other objects. So most of the time, the orbit, so if we get into the orbit, that's why I said the Ankh's hidden symbolism is one of the topics I wanted to talk about, because the Ankh is one of the most oldest symbols. It changes and it transitions. It can be a cross, it could be an 8-pointed star, but the Ankh itself depicts the orbit that I'm talking about perfectly. So you have the elliptical plane, and it's the horizontal, and then you have the pillar, it's the foundation underneath it that holds up our solar system. And then the loop at the top is to describe the orbit of death. So it's a symbol of life and death and a perfect balance.
Right.
So the planet itself, other people think that it has moons around it, okay, or it could be like a star and have planets around it. It just has objects around it, which I think that it does, or it has, just because of the asteroid belt. You take in the asteroid belt. So in Numia Lish, it describes that when this object came in, that it came in close enough that one of its moons smashed into another object that was, in its own orbit, another planet, and it destroyed and created the asteroid belt. And over millions of years, the gravitational pull created the ring that we see today.
Right on.
Okay, so that's a theory that would, suffice for evidence to show that that object has other objects orbiting around it. But the majority of the time, this object comes in right about Uranus, which is why that orbit itself is always flipped, because most of the time it comes in right about there or within its orbit.
I have to address this because if I don't, my audience will drive me crazy. You cited NASA as source materials for
the black hole star.
For the black hole star, yes. Do you think that NASA can actually be a trusted source for any of this, just based on all the lies that they've told us so far about moon landing, all the fake pictures and everything else? Do you think that we can even trust any of the information coming out of there?
I would say yes and no. That very much you are correct. That we have to look at everything in black and white and see the gray. And so when I go into government websites and I'm looking for information, there's keywords that you have to look for, that you have to even find this stuff with. It's buried deep in there. It took me months to find the websites that I'm going to be sending you. And then when you go into these government websites, so very much so, disclosure is what people need to understand, is that everything is on the table. And the reason why is because all bets are off. Because of the changes that are happening right now, it's all for grabs. Whoever takes over at this time will inherit the earth and decide the next 13,000 years of history, because of the major change that we're about to be going through. And so all of the information we can learn ourselves, and it's out there. We have to find it. It's very hard, but I feel that, yes, there are lots of information that's put out there that's not true. Lots of things that are hidden from us, things that are put out there to distract us so that we don't go looking for the stuff and some of the stuff that I found, because all bets are off. They don't want people to know the truth. They don't want them to discover it, but they want to freely be able to give them the ability to do it. Are people going to be too distracted to dig enough is the problem. Are they going to look at all of the lies that have been put out there and not try to find the truth within the lies and shut it completely down? Or are they going to see that some of the truth is being put out there and try to put the pieces together?
Yeah, right. That's just what our community is full of. It's mixed of misinformation and truths and half truths to keep everybody confused and nobody really knowing where the hell they're coming or going. Now, for as far as this object, will we ever be able to see it with our own eyes in the sky? You believe?
I believe so, yes, but depending on the proximity of it, it could just look like Mars to us. Right. But then, so like we have the Hopi legend says the blue and the red Kachina. So that description tells me two different objects, but that they're visible. You have multiple different religious texts and mythologies and tales and legends where you can see this object. Now, some of these tales and legends, I would say, are completely outlandish and not correct. And, maybe just a little bit, not the truth. And, the game of telephone is interesting, but I would say that some of these accounts are accurate enough to say that, yes, we can see the object.
Right on. Well, let's get into the expected effects of this thing whenever it does come into proximity. First of all, what is the worst that we could expect from this catastrophe? And then we'll get into some of the things that we might be already starting to see. But what would we expect for the worst of this?
I would say flooding upwards of 200 to 400 meters. And it's very, like, it's not all over the earth either. So like when you tilt the earth and you change the gravitational pull along with its rotation and its axis, the water is not going to move. Like the water stays where it's at, but the earth is what's moving. And so it's not the, where the, like, all of a sudden one area is flooding, but another area isn't going to. And it's not like, we're not going to know why. Like areas that we think might flood might not flood.
Mm-hmm.
And all the water might rush to a different area. And so I would say on a flood scale, depending on where you're at and how we tilt, which is going to take time for us to calculate. We already have brilliant researchers out there right now who are tracking our gravitational pull and where the axis and the tilt is going and how fast we're rotating. And so with that, we can kind of tell, like, based off of land mass and mountains and rivers, like it's a lot of research, but we can kind of tell where stuff's going to flood at. And so I would say major flooding. I would say that probably most electronics, if it's not off grid, would be off, just because it's not going to be able to connect to any satellites. All of our stars are going to change. Like that's why our zodiac precession. So to get into zodiac precession, it's 2,160 years.
Mm-hmm.
When you take that into 12, that is the great year cycle, which is the cycle that this earth tilts. And so our stars change too. And with that changes our navigation. And so then we have, this is how mountains were built. The earthquakes, the continents shifting and crashing into different things, like within each other, and caverns breaking on the inside. Like there's so many different factors that it's created mountains, different valleys. It's, so like we have Antarctica, for instance, half of it is melting, half of it is gaining ice because the pole is shifting. And so with losing the ice, like we have some flooding, but that's not going to count at all compared to the flooding that we're going to have just from ocean displacement. So we're going to have parts that are going to get colder because of that, and parts that are going to get hotter. The equator is going to change. We're going to have wind in different places, tornadoes in different places. That, we're already experiencing some of the things I'm talking about as well. So we have hurricanes that are going to amp up. Those have been amping up since the late 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
Is the hurricanes. Like that only really started a couple hundred years ago.
No, there's also evidence right now that we're seeing magnetic north is rapidly moving, and that's something that's very measurable. And it's speculated from some Planet X researchers that we could either see a crustal pole shift or a magnetic type of pole shift. What are your thoughts on that?
We can see magnetic pole shift in our oceans. I believe it is, like we can see the shift of it. The magnetic pole has been flipping for millions. I mean, since forever,
right?
And so that's normal for us. The crust itself, that's how our mountains were made. That's how the earth looks the way it does now, is because it's grown over time. And so what we're going to be experiencing is normal for us. And I think that we would go through a crust displacement in some areas. I mean, that's how the Ring of Fire was created.
Right on.
I'm sorry.
No,
Keep
that's
going.
okay. And I know that something that I was looking at whenever I was looking at all this stuff is we did have a definite increase in seismic activity from the early 1900s to now, and I'm
Yeah,
wondering if that's still a thing.
1960s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is, and it's not being reported enough. So we have to worry about minor earthquakes and the depth of them. It's not so much the magnitude, it's the depth we have to worry about. Because we could have a very shallow 7.6 earthquake that's not going to do too much damage. But if you have one that's like, 200 meters down and it's still a 7, that's going to mess a lot of things up. And so when you're looking at minor earthquakes, those build up like a domino effect too. And gases need to be released. Like I said, there's caverns that break apart. Like it changes on the inside as well as the outside. That's why the outside changes.
Are
And
we
so,
experiencing like a core expansion? We be worried about volcanoes erupting as well?
yeah, yeah, that happens. Yeah. Especially with the earthquakes, because with more and more pressure moving to different spots, that changes that pressure in that area now. And so, with more earthquakes, volcanoes that have been extinct for thousands of years could wake up depending on where the earthquakes are and what the caverns are and the lava tubes and everything that are underneath it. Like we have to worry about what's underneath where those earthquakes are, because that's what's it's displacing. We just can't see it. And with that, it could cause volcanoes. I wouldn't say all of them would blow up. See, this is why a lot of people, they're like, oh, every volcano is going to blow up. We're going to have earthquakes across every surface. We're going to have flooding everywhere. The earth is going to go upside down. Like all of that's just fear mongering. There's going to be major volcano eruptions in some parts of the world. Yes, it's happened before, but we don't need to be worried that all of them are going to blow. We need to watch the ones that we can see and we can measure now that are already having more activity than they've experienced in previous years, and pay attention to those ones and prepare the communities that are around those.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there are, like you were saying, a lot of more safer places than others, and that's what I want to get to a little bit. Is what I understand from a lot of other researchers' beliefs that the coasts are going to be obliterated because of the rising tides or tidal waves. Is this something that you believe is going to occur as well?
A lot of them, yes, but also we're going to have coasts that are going to grow.
Mm.
So, like how a tsunami takes the coast with it, like it takes the water away and it makes the coast bigger.
Yeah.
It'll just stay like that. The water won't go back and cause a tsunami because the water is moving away from it and causing a tsunami someplace else.
Right.
And then that portion depend. I mean, it just depends. This is only going to happen in some areas, not all areas. And you would have to really research how the earth is tilting and where it's going to go and how the water would move with the way that the earth looks, because it's not a perfect sphere. Like if you look at the way that the earth looks without the oceans, it's all lopsided. It looks like an asteroid.
Mm.
And so if you look at that and like where the largest gravitational pull of earth is and like where it's going to move, then you can see where it's going to move at. So I would say, yes, some coasts are going to be destroyed, but some of them are going to grow and we're going to have completely new beaches.
It seems like this would have a major effect on our star, on our sun, as it gets closer. What kind of changes should we expect there? Should we be worried about like solar flares, CMEs, things like that?
Yes, we should, because like I said, it tilts every object in our solar system, including the sun. I believe it's 6 degrees. I might be wrong about that one. It's been a while since I've looked it up. But it tilts the sun, and with the sun, it has its own cycle, it has its own changes. And with it pulling solar energy from the sun itself, then the dark spots on the sun grow bigger, and
Sunspots,
they it would pull and it would cause more energy to be released out of the sun. And so yes, we would experience more solar rays, more solar winds, we would, more CMEs. Now, those they only really hurt us if they're earth facing. Like a lot of the time, like the way that our solar system is set up is that we are going to survive. And so do I think that we're going to die from a CME? No, I don't. I think that it would affect our electromagnetic sphere. I think that it would pull that away and make it weaker. And like it might maybe fry some of our electronics, or maybe some areas of the earth will get hotter. It's going to hurt our atmosphere in different ways. So it causes different changes within the earth, but I don't think that we're going to get hit with a flare and the whole sun's going to turn into like a fireball. I mean, the whole earth is going to turn into a fireball, like how some people try to tell people that it's going to happen like that. So I would say they're good to watch for the activity, because with more solar activity, we can see how much time we're looking at in a way. Like I said, no predictions, but we need to look at how much activity is happening, which a lot of people already are doing.
Let's talk about the possibility of secret factions, secret societies, very high-level groups that already know about this, that have known about this for a long time, that may even have, high-level bloodlines that go back to origins. What is your understanding? Do you believe that there is high-level groups that know about this and are preparing, possibly, having underground bases or something even off-planet?
Absolutely. I'm not entirely sure about off-planet yet about that one. But so for at least the better part of 10,000 years, there has been a group whose name has changed multiple times, and currently one of them is the Rosicrucian Order. But so that gets into our religion. So when I look at the roots of our religion, I see that we're mostly nature-based. We worshipped, well, not, I wouldn't really say worship, we respected energy, and we understood our own divinity. And so during the last catastrophe, the Younger Dryas, all bets were off. Whoever took over, like I said, changed the course of history. So the ones who took over were the ones who didn't want us to know what our 360 senses were, didn't want us to have the ability to connect with sound, to connect with vibration, to manifest, to open up our third eye. And so they created books to manipulate that. And we have multiple different groups. We have groups that protected our history and what that knowledge was and the energy itself. And we've had people try to change that course. So we have Akhenaten. Okay. Everybody tries to think that he was trying to get people to worship the sun. And he was not trying to get people to worship the sun. He was trying to open up people's minds into realizing that we were connected to energy. It was energy that he was talking about, like the things seen and unseen, the fragments of our universe and our consciousness. It had, like, I mean, the sun's a part of it, yes, but it wasn't something that was like, we're going to actually worship the sun as a physical being.
Right.
And so we have groups that have spent thousands and thousands of years trying to destroy our ancient knowledge, like the Library of Alexandria and Glastonbury Abbey. And we have groups that have been hidden within those, that have been hoarding it and disclosing it and putting out the information when the time was right. But what we have to understand too is that with this knowledge, there are parts of it that we shouldn't know. There are people out there who are sick-minded and evil, who should not have this knowledge, who should not know how to unlock parts of their third eye, because they would hurt other people. And so with the creation of the societies, that's the whole thing it is. It's like we have to protect this knowledge from people. They can't know it. And so for thousands of years, people have been killed for being witches. Yeah. Because that was, part of, or being pagan, or just having other belief systems, because it opened up their third eye. And so now to get into a topic that's a little bit off, I'm going to talk about Jesus a little bit because he's a prime example. And I wholeheartedly believe that he was an actual person. He was real. And he was a part of, I would say, in a bloodline sense, to these secret societies on different sides. And he was taken and taught and trained how to unlock his 360 senses. And so he went out into the world and he started healing people and doing amazing things that we can all do. Every single one of us that's listening to this can all do it. Okay. And it scared the people that were in power because they wanted people to be ignorant and naive to what their own abilities could be.
Right.
And so when Jesus wouldn't stop, because what are you supposed to do? What's right for the world? What's right for humanity? You know, to share your gifts and to help open up people's eyes and awaken them. And so he was like, no, I don't care. I'm still going to do it. And so they decided to kill him and murder him. He was not a sacrifice. He was a sacrifice for them. And so they used his story and they used what he was doing so that they could more manipulate people into not looking into their own divinity and who they are, because that at the core of all, those evil societies or the people within them, it's not like that. Some of the societies are evil, but some of them, like I would say the Rosicrucians, for instance, we have a double-sided coin. We have people who want disclosure out and want people to know their origins and their consciousness. And then we have people that don't, because to have more people woken up means that they lose more power. It's not about power. And so very much so, it's like that everywhere. And with the knowledge of the dark star included with it, that controls our consciousness and where we go and what we can do. And so that's been one of the most hidden knowledge bases other than our consciousness and our 360 senses out there. Because if more people that were waking up to this understood their own power that they had right now in the time that they're in, because if more people that are waking up, like people that are listening to this right now, you're waking up. Okay. If you chose to gain a community of like-minded people and we all came together to wake everybody up, then when we inherit the earth, we can rebuild it back to what it was in ancient Lemurian times. And that's where we should be. We shouldn't be a society that's based off of material objects and phones and computers and, you know, TikTok and, you know, who can twerk better. Like there's so many things that are put out there as distractions now because religion's not doing it anymore. Exactly. So they have to give us more. I mean, why do we have 10 different options for the same exact thing to eat? You know, why do we have 500 different types of cell phones? Like there's like so many different distractions out there. Video games are another one. Now, video games, though, just like movies, they put out a lot of information in video games and movies and videos and little, like, look, there was just a movie that came out called Moonfall that's on HBO Max. And that blew my mind just how much they put in there. Disclosure is now. You can find it yourself. You don't have to be a part of these secret societies in order to learn it. That's another thing too. If you have someone approach you and is like, hey, come here and read everything that we have and you can only learn it through us, you know, that's bullshit.
Right. You
can go out there and you can learn it yourself. You can teach yourself. All these books, all of hundreds-year-old books, they're out there. You know, you have to open up your mind to it because we have to take control of the knowledge ourselves now, but also understand that there are some materials out there that people should not read and should be protected against them.
I agree. Yes, there are some people that are probably not ready to have these abilities. Now, you mentioned a few times that disclosure is here, and I agree on many levels. But disclosure of what? On some levels, I'm not even really sure what they're disclosing. As far as the UFO thing, I think there's a lot of deception going on there. I think there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of bad eggs, just like in the Planet X Society that I was talking about earlier. In the whole
Yeah.
conspiratorial community, they have people intentionally put in there to muddy the waters and spread bad
Yes.
information.
Yeah.
But as
Like the
far
whole
as
sundog thing.
yes, pictures, fake
Yeah.
pictures, all that stuff. But as far as disclosure, what we're talking about now, what does that mean to you? Do you think this is in combination with the admittance that we're not alone in the universe as well? Does this coincide with this?
Yes. So when I say disclosure is now, I'm meaning all information is out there,
Mm-hmm.
but it's hidden. It's hidden in the deception. It's hidden in the dogma. It's hidden in your own thinking. You have to change the way that you've been taught. You are
Yeah.
not a product of the environment that you were brought up in. You have the ability to change your thoughts and change your thinking and your decisions at any time, but you have to be open minded. You have to have the ability to read other people's opinions that might not align with yours, and maybe even read them 10 years from now to see if your mind's changed. It's a constant evolution of yourself. And so when I say disclosures now, I say that because they've put the information out there already. You just
Right.
have to look for it and be able to see the white and the black and read the gray. You have to look for it. And so we are a planet of free will. We're in a free will section of the universe, from what I've heard. I'm not sure, but that goes into the like alien civilizations and stuff too. So we change things. We can go one of two ways or a million different ways. Time exists at all levels. Past, present, and future is happening now. And so when we're looking at ourselves and our lives and our decisions and we have multiple different branches that we can go into. The same thing happens with this cycle. We can go into branches where the same people who are in control right now, who have messed everything up, will stay in control like they want to. But there's people for thousands of years now who have hoarded this information and kept it safe and protected it. That's the Ark of the Covenant. I'll get into that too. So those people are putting the information out there so that we have the free ability to make a decision for ourselves. And if collectively we make a decision to uplift humanity and to build us up into more of an energetic sense instead of a material sense, then that's going to change the course of history for the next 13,000 years.
Right on.
So there has to be some level of truth within all of these lies that we're looking at.
Yeah, I agree,
And
100%. And I want to go back to another aspect of what we can consider disclosure. There's many people who research this field that believe that there is a race or a type of entity or being associated with Nibiru or Planet X called the Anunnaki, and that they were also our progenitors and, mucked with our DNA in ancient times and helped create us. There's tons of different aspects and theories that go along with this. You have, Sitchin's version, and then there are people in more recently that are saying he's not correct, that he was misunderstanding some of the translations. I don't know. What do you think about these beings? The
so
Anunnaki?
to get into Sitchin, he was an extremely intelligent man, and he taught himself how to translate cuneiform. He went to dozens of museums and he did the work. And I do believe he knew what he was reading and what he was putting out there. Now, the thing is that he was a Mason. Okay. And so when you're a part of these groups, there's things you're not allowed to say. There's things you're not allowed to put out there. And one of those is the orbit of this planet. So remember how I said you're not allowed to put predictions out there. No, just like the Bible says, no one will know the day or time. Okay. So the he was allowed to put the disclosure out there, the books out there with lies in it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't read all of his books and take it 100% for truth,
Right.
because he wasn't allowed to put it out there. It wasn't time yet. And so you take into the 3,600 years, that is a number within the cycle, but it's not the exact number. It's funny that he used 3,600 because it roots to 360, and that goes into a whole bunch of other sacred geometry and numerology and stuff like that. So, but you can't look at what he's saying word for word and be like, he's 100% factual, because he was also controlled to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
So you take into the mining of gold for their atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't think that it was gold, like how we're thinking, like, our shiny gold stuff that we love.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it was Ormus. It was monoatomic gold, which is the essence of life.
Yeah.
It's what life at its root is created from.
Mm-hmm.
It's the consciousness. And so I think that they were harvesting that, and that they were creating that, because you have to have a lot of alchemy processes that our earth has in order to do that. And it can create longer lifespans. It can heal you. It heals your consciousness, traumatic events. Like there's so many different properties that it has. But the way that you create Ormus too, very much it's who you are. When you're creating it, your life force goes into it. And so if you create an evil Ormus, that's a complete distortion of nature. And so that's another thing that needs to be hidden away. And so when you create Ormus, you're supposed to do it with abundance and with life and with protection and healing. And when you put the disclosure out there, the way that you would describe it, as they're mining gold for their atmosphere so that they can live.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of information that's put out there that you have to look for the truth within the lies. And that's one of them. Is a lot of Stitchen's work is true, but a lot of it is also not. It's also dogma that's put out there by the people that have been manipulating our history for thousands of years.
Right on.
And so there's still that going on with other groups, with, you look at books from 100 years ago, and that was happening a lot.
Do you think that there is a group of beings that are associated with this dark star in any way?
Yes. So when I look at our solar system, and like how long Earth itself has been around, and the beings that have been on here, and I look at the universe, there has to be life on other planets, but it's very tricky.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at the Oort cloud that surrounds our solar system, which I'll get into later with that, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. It's almost like a Dyson sphere. And so I believe the Oort clouds are the only way that life can exist, is within an Oort cloud. And so, yes, I do think that there are beings who either live on one of the moons or planets that orbits the dark star, or they orbit with it, maybe on like a craft, perhaps, but that they're millions of years old, and that there's multiple different alien civilizations who have came to Earth and who have manipulated and put their own touch on things, and have put their own inspiration or religions, or like just different things. We've definitely come together as a village for multiple different things and people and beings. And the Anunnaki, I would say, was a major aspect of that, and that they probably look just like us. I mean, we've got depictions of, giants, but they look just like us. And so unless their evolution would have made them shorter, they would, we would be able to tell but if they somehow were shorter, they could be almost completely indistinguishable from us, except for their knowledge base and how long they've been alive. Well, I'll go into Lemuria because that goes into Earth changes.
Sure.
So when I say that, like, you can go out there and you can read all these books yourself, there's a library called the Rosicrucian Library, which, of course, even with secret society books, you cannot take everything to heart. You have to still look at the white and the black and read the gray. There's information in there that's true, but there's information in there that's not. And the authors that are a part of that library were just like Stitchin, and some of them had to not put in some information or distort the truth. But there's a particular book about Lemuria that's in there, and it talks about how it was a continent in the Pacific Ocean that over time, with these cycles, it started going away. So a lot of people think that Atlantis or Lemuria, in one whole swoop, it just flooded. No, what happened is over about 50,000 years, roughly, it slowly started to flood or deteriorate or break apart. And it's not really breaking, it's more like earthquakes and things rising, and then the flooding happens and it covers it over and stuff like that. So those people at a certain point, probably about 20,000 years ago, started going to all of the Pacific coastlines, the entire Ring of Fire. So that's how we have the people in Asia. That's how they started in New Zealand and Australia, talking Easter, all the Pacific Islands, even North America, Alaska, like all the way down South America. Like, they went to all of the coastal regions. And so when they did that, they branched out and they started creating different civilizations. And I believe that they already had multiple tribes of different types of people. So we're talking the 42 tribes, like any color, there's multiple different types of people. And so they went with their people to these different areas and created their own villages and their own cities and created their own civilizations anew again with the knowledge that they had. And you take North America, for instance, we have the Winnemucca petroglyphic site, which is the oldest petroglyphic site in North America. People don't really know about it. You're not allowed to go there without permission from the Paiute tribe. But the inscriptions on there are very interesting. It correlates to solar cycles, moon cycles. It talks about catastrophes that have happened and migrations, different animals and plant life. And people aren't allowed to go up there and really look at the inscriptions. But when you're looking at them, and then you look at the oldest petroglyphs and inscriptions that we have, you can see that it's describing the catastrophes that they went to and where they went. And you see that all over the place in those coasts. Yeah. And so I think that Lemuria was one of the civilizations, the last ones, that had our knowledge that we were children of the light, that we were connected to our divinity, that we were higher consciousness. Like, they were sound based. Like, they didn't have writing really back then. They only really started writing so that they could warn people about what happened. And so people talked telepathically. People had there wasn't crime, there wasn't trade really, or money is really what I mean. There weren't slaves. Everybody took care of themselves and each other. If your neighbor was doing bad, you were doing bad. And so when times changed and everything went everywhere, everybody started trying to take control with their own ideas, and they went through traumatic events. It's a traumatic event in our consciousness.
Yeah.
And so with that, we have people or alien civilizations that came at the time of the catastrophe and put in their own dogma and ideas. and manipulated our societies. And that's why we have so many different religions. Mm-hmm. I do think that they visit us with the catastrophes, but we're on our own. Like, they're not going to necessarily save us. You know, we're on this cycle for a reason. For there to be life, there has to be death.
Now we're apparently in a time in an era where we're facing great changes as a society. Our consciousness is evolving. We have many people awakening to a lot of the things going on, and there's some that of the belief that this could be the one of the last eras of human civilization, or there's some that believe that we're headed that within our lifetime we could see one of these major catastrophes, or even experience a passing of planet X. Now, it is obvious that we're in a very special time right now with everything happening, especially since 2020, and the amount of people that are doing consciousness exploration and coming around and looking at the hidden reality. What do you think that we are in a very significant time, and that we could possibly experience something like this during our lifetime?
I think that we have a possibility of it, yes, but also no, because when I look at previous cycles, so you have cycles of, remember I said those numbers, 108, 216, 324, 432. You put a 0 at the end of one of each one of those, and you put it into thousands of years, and you go back into history, you can track the climate changes. Okay. And so the number that we have to look at the most is the number 3,240. Okay. It's the closest number to the cycle that we can get to. But it, like I said, no exact numbers. Okay. We also have 3672. We have, the Mayan calendar is 5,125. We have like multiple different calendars of time. So when I'm looking at the changes that we're going through now and the changes that we went through in the past, there's a period of about 432 years. There's that number again, where we can see the changes, where it can happen at any time within that time frame, or even after it could. But roughly about 432 years is what we're looking at, seeing our climate changing, our earthquakes amping up, like the flooding in different areas, CME activity, so all of these changes we'll see within a 432 year period. And we're in that period. We've been experiencing that for about 150, 200 years now. And we have to also take into the account that there's some theories that say that we've lost 1,000 years of history, that they just completely wiped away 1,000 years. And we don't actually know what year we're in. We don't know what time we're in. So we have to put dozens of calendars together and kind of take an average in there and recognize what we're going through are these changes, what previous civilizations have predicted that we need to watch out for. So we have the Maya calendar, how it ended in 2012. Oh, the world's going to end. No, it's not. That was a warning. It was a marker in time that we need to pay attention. It wasn't, we're all going to die. This is the end. No, it's this. We're in a cycle. We're in it. This is when we need to start paying attention more, because things going to start amping up. And we're never going to know what day or year or anything that it is, but we can watch the changes and help the people that are around those changes, because it's gradual, and then it's sudden, and then it dies down. It's a domino effect.
What are some of the go ahead, finish up.
Well, no, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, what are some of the other planetary effects, Earth changes that we should be looking for as we head closer to the event?
Other than the ones that I mentioned, I'd say on a consciousness level, we have to look at it too. It's not just Earth changes, like within ourselves, what we're connecting to, what we're remembering, what we're feeling, and not feel like it's wrong to feel that way just because we've been taught that for thousands of years. Like if you're seeing auras, that's not a bad thing. It's not a weird, if you're having visions of, your mother getting into a car accident, and so you decide to warn her, those are things that you shouldn't feel ashamed of. Those are you're waking up. And when you start paying attention and you start recognizing and yourself within yourself first, you can feel the changes, you can feel the vibrational change. And if you choose to fight it, that's, I mean, why are you here?
Yeah.
You know, if you're not here to uplift and awaken your spiritual and your consciousness, then why are you here? Are you here just to be on your phone or play video games, you know? And so when I look at earth changes and I look at consciousness changes, I would say that we're already in it and we're experiencing it, and we can see it already right now. We're going to see migrations of animals to different places that they weren't before. We already said earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, tornadoes,
And,
lightning.
you'd say a basic shift in climate areas as well.
Everything shifts. It's everything. Our water heats up and, gets colder in areas. Ice rises and falls. Every single climate and like tundra, like everything changes. All of it changes.
For the last few minutes we have, maybe we could give the audience a little information on how to prepare and anything else that you'd like to close out with, really.
I would say people need to prepare by looking at what they have and seeing what's the minimal that they can grab and what they can prepare for, what they can be ready for, because you should just be prepared, not just for you, but like even your grandkids. Think about them, because even if we don't go into this cycle, one of our future generations very soon is going to. And so it's not just us that we need to prepare for, it's future generations that we need to prepare for. We need to look at landscapes. We need to look at where the next mountain range might form. We need to look at where our government agencies have placed certain things and possibly stay away from them. We need to look at what people are most likely to do in chaos and in a frenzy. Come up with a plan of where you're going to go, who you're going to meet up with. Make sure that the people around you know what you're going to do and where you're going to go if shit hits the fan. You need to communicate. And like, even if the people around you are calling you crazy, you still need to put it in the back of their head that they need to prepare, because, you saying something might just make them grab an extra pack of batteries when they're at the store. Or, more water, you never know. And so we need to help our people around us, because that's all we have. We are what's going to rebuild. And so we need to not take from other people. We need to, at the high time of when all of this happens and people are panicking, we need to remember to help people, be there for them, because they're going through the same thing that you are. And if we're all helping each other, we can get through it and we can make it. So we need to have action plans of where groups and communities of people are going to go to that are safe spots. So we have to take data and predictions of earth changes and what the earth could look like with these changes, and then take those people on safe routes to those safe locations. Right. And have it in the back of their head as a plan, like where are caves, where are mines, where are the resources that we need, depending on where we're at, how far would we have to dig underground to have water? How far is what? Like, we have to look at all factors of it. Yeah. And so I would say prepare now and hope for the best, but prepare for future generations too.
Very well said, and I would definitely have to agree. Shianne, this was fantastic. I'd love to have you back on to talk about Rosicrucianism and the nature of reality and all kinds of other stuff if you'd like.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
Wonderful. Well, before you head out, let the audience know if there's any way they can find your work online, social media, anything you got out there.
I'm gonna probably start posting more videos on YouTube. I went into hiding for a long time, because with disclosing a lot of this information, there's people out there that don't want it to be put out, and there are things that they can do to you energetically that
Right.
distract you and prevent you from doing things. And I've been going through a rough time. So a lot of my research is on Facebook. I have 2 Facebook accounts. So we have Nibiru Remnants is what I named it as. It's actually named off of a pharaoh in Egypt, who that's the way that you spell his name. And I thought that it was so unique. I just had to use it. So I spell it a different way than a lot of other people do, which will make it easy for my research. So on YouTube, it's also spelled that way. You, it's Nebiriau. And so if you look that up, the only things you're going to find on it are my research and that pharaoh from Egypt.
Very cool.
So that'll be the best way for you to find me.
Awesome. Well, Shianne, this was fantastic. Great information. Like I said, we'll definitely have you back on sometime in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. It was nice to talk to you.
Yeah, great talking to you. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We will talk again tomorrow. We'll see y'all then.